p.m. on May 7th, 2025. I'll call the Board of Health meeting to order. And our first item will be for board members to announce their presence since we're having a virtual meeting.
Steve Constantine, present.
Sorry.
Julie Dreyfus, present.
Diana Hook, present.
Did you want to go?
Steve is already gone, and
Oh, he did. Oh, sorry.
I don't see Rebecca yet.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I am not aware of any items to be added to the agenda that were not anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Is anyone aware of any emergencies? Okay. So let's see. Yep. Minutes. How about a little administrator search update? Stephen, would you like to give just a very quick overview on that?
Sure. So we've kind of gone. We've actually found two candidates that look pretty good. They've gone through one round with Daryl and myself, and now we have meetings scheduled early next week for both of them to speak with Julie, Diana, and we'll see how that goes. I think they're good. I think they're good candidates. They're fairly young, but that could be a good thing. It could be a good thing to bring someone on that we can kind of teach the ropes and have them work through the specifics of what we need done for our Board of Health, and have them grow from there. So that's the update.
And I'll also mention, so Diane Moores and also Jeremy Marset have been in on the interviews to date as well.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. Mark, is there anyone else besides for like maybe Bogastow Brook? Or is that something that we could fit in 6 minutes?
Bogastow Brook, it's an renewal and approval of a septic plan that we had seen back in 2022. They had changed the house slightly, which changed the well location and the septic tank location. It has been reviewed, and I'm going to recommend approval. And that's the new owner that's listed, Robert DeZalo, I believe it's pronounced.
Diana has her hand raised. Right?
Yeah, Diana, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was a little slow trying to find the icon to raise my hand. I did have a question.
Call out.
Pardon? Oh, okay.
You can always call out.
With respect to, unfortunately, changing topics, getting back to the health administrator interviews, were there any, we had at one point put together a list of questions. Were any of those questions not used? Or for those of you who were in the first round of interviews, is there something that Julie and I should be sure to address with respect to the questions, or that wasn't asked or should be followed up on?
So Dan, if you remember, we had like sections for each of those questions. And I believe when Daryl and I interviewed the candidates, we kind of hit on each one of those sections. We might not have hit all the questions, okay, but we got answers to most of the questions that we had. But again, you're free to ask pretty much any question. I mean, you can kind of take a look at the ones that we asked, and you might get a different answer, or you might be able to phrase it in a different way. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll review the resumes before next week and go from there. All right. Thank you.
Oh, just real quick though, so what Diane did is she actually combined both resumes in the same document. So it's only one PDF, so they're stacked one on top of the other.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Good to know.
Yeah, I got confused. I thought we were missing a resume, but no.
Okay.
Mark,
Thank you.
would it be useful if I bring up the plan?
Gerald, you want me to bring that up?
Yeah, actually, that would be good.
Oh, you got it? Oh, you got it.
Stop sharing.
Carol, given this is not a scheduled variance hearing that butters were notified, I don't think that we have to have an exact on the time, if I'm correct. I think
Not
the
exact,
time
but-
was a nod to the request of the applicant.
Uh,
That was my understanding of the process, as long as we are close to that time.
yeah. I just thought there's some slight chance that there are others who might be interested, if they had followed the issue before, which I really don't know if someone was who has a similar situation. That's the only reason I was thinking of
Well, I'm trying to figure out
holding
why
off just a
everything's
bit.
big screen to a.
I don't see anyone here for Lot 1A Bogastow, but we could do that any time of the meeting.
All right, so we're close enough. All right, let's shift gears and go to 11E. So perhaps the floor plan for that would be good then, Stephen. Sorry about that shift.
Gerald, you're breaking up a little bit. I didn't catch
Oh.
everything.
So if you can bring up the plan for 11 Ames.
Okay. All right. And yeah. Let me share.
While Steve is sharing, I think we have another board member who has entered the meeting. If you could announce yourself, Rebecca, for the record.
This is Rebecca Honeywell, and I'm present. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yep.
can.
Yes.
Okay.
Can folks see the plan?
No,
Well,
Yeah.
Not yet.
It's the second button to push to. Sometimes you can tap twice, and sometimes you have to go to the button in the lower right.
There we go.
okay.
if you could zoom in a little bit, Steve, that would be wonderful.
Any specific section you want to start with?
Sorry,
Uh,
before we jump in, I don't know if this matters, but Mark, you had
Yeah, I was
requested
just gonna say, this is the original plan that was submitted as the
Yeah.
building application, and there should be another plan,
No,
Steve.
actually, I think this is the one I sent you, Mark, first, and then you
Yes.
immediately asked for relabeling, and then
Correct, correct. And you did label it as a bedroom suite. You took off the labels for the
Yeah.
bedroom and the
yeah,
office.
I think it's just called revised. It should be the
Yeah.
same.
I believe it's with the documents. Jean did add it to the documents. I asked that she do that. It may be another document within the 11 Ames documents.
Yep. So Stephen,
With labels?
it's yes, updated.
Yeah,
Is labeled the update.
Okay.
there we go. That's it. There's some wording right near the doorways that says bedroom suite. If you enlarge it, you'll be able to read that. And there you go. Yeah, primary bedroom suite is the language now being used right at the entry to the new, not to the new, but well, it will be a new bedroom, and to the area next to the bedroom. That's not labeled anymore as an office.
Mark, do you want to introduce this, or
I can introduce it to some degree, sure.
Yeah.
So the board reviewed this at a previous meeting in February, and the review of the board was to try to utilize some way of making it a suite versus two separate rooms. So that was the intent of the board, so that it would not count, excuse me, in the room count, excuse me. And so because the board did count the dining area and the kitchen as two separate rooms, and They would have to stay within the maximum room count of 9, and it would have gone to 10. So the intent of the board was to make sure that the room next to this primary bedroom would be part of that suite. And that's pretty much a summary of what the board had reviewed.
So I can pick it up from here if that's helpful. So, and part of, I rewatched that recording as well. We had noted that it be integrated as a suite or intertwined as a suite. And so when I'm looking at this, this change that's come back to us, I see that we had proposed that there is a doorway to create a hall to the primary bedroom, and I see that that's present. It looks like there's just a linen cabinet outside of the doorway. You then come into the space of several steps. To your left, you have a ensuite, primary ensuite. To the right, you have access, exclusive access to this room through this glass door through this hallway, and the hallway is only accessible through the primary bedroom suite. And then if you continue into the rest of the space, you have the main bedroom area along with closets. And so when I look at this space, it feels pretty consistent with how we have viewed previous bedroom suites, in that, you know, we will see this oftentimes is laid out more as like a dressing room or a large walk-in closet, or kind of an extra, we've seen it as like a library or a study is often how we'll see it labeled, as kind of a space within the larger room, but it is only accessible from the primary bedroom. And so given the location of this doorway across from the bathroom, that's pretty consistent with how we see dressing rooms when we have exclusive dressing rooms. The only thing here that I think is, for me, the discussion point of note for the board would be the presence of a door. And in this case, it's a glass door. And so often, for me, a critical distinction becomes, is there a semblance of privacy? And is this, you know, accessible from a hallway that's within the rest of the house? And obviously it's accessible exclusively within the bedroom. The presence of a glass door certainly does not give privacy in that it's glass. I think what this gives at most is some soundproofing, but it does not give visual privacy. And for me, that's probably where the main discussion point is here for the board tonight, to see how we feel. But I would love to hear what the rest of the board feels.
I agree. You're certainly not going to a glass door to the office. Elizabeth, nothing's going to happen in that office the kids can't see.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so this is the glass door right here where I have my cursor. And there's no closets or anything else in this room. It's just a plain room. And the point of the glass door specifically that it doesn't get counted as a bedroom, is that the point?
The
More that, go ahead, Julie.
Oh, so at the last time that this application was before our board in February, we had specified that originally this space was accessible through the main hallway of the home. And we said that in that situation, it counts as a room. And we suggested that if this was integrated as a bedroom suite, the way we have seen in the past,
Right.
that is a way to make this, be able to make this space possible.
Okay.
And so, does that answer your question, or?
I think so. So it's this hallway here, it takes you to the bedroom suite, and included in the suite is this room with the glass door.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm looking at this too, that, I mean, this one it's tricky. It's definitely more on the edge. We've seen some things where, for example, no, it's hard to describe without actually seeing the plan, but in some of the antique homes, there would be a room that you would walk through to get to another bedroom.
Mm.
So historically, that was just the way bedrooms were in narrow homes. And those have, it's clear that to completely walk through space versus a hall, that was something that did not give privacy to that first room, even if there was a door between it and the next room. So the door is not as important to me as now with this door moved, there is no privacy for the back primary bedroom area from someone who's going into that room. So that changes the dynamic for me. I think the glass door is a step in the right direction. It could be covered, with a curtain. I'm not advocating for that, but I don't want that to be the hinge, because it's not an absolute feature in itself. But I think it's the proximity. It's this glass door is right near the back bedroom main area and directly across from the bathroom that's shared, and there's line of sight and all the rest. And to me, that eliminates the privacy, essentially.
Would other members of the board like to weigh in?
I guess what we're wrestling with is a way to find ways for things to work that don't compromise the standards for how septic system sizing is calculated. And this is a tough one. Part of me, looking at this plan, would love some way for that table by the kitchen to somehow become part of the kitchen, because we don't see many kitchens without an eating area, right? That's been a common theme for us, is to say that, of course, you need somewhere to eat in a kitchen. And that's so tantalizing there, which might make everything else easier, but
That's
complicated.
Work. And that's not the scope of work that's being proposed.
I understand. We discussed it before, just want to throw it out there, but I don't.
I mean, our hands are
we
tied
didn't
because,
analyze it.
yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Rebecca.
I didn't mean to talk over you. Sorry. Are you done?
I'm done. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was just saying our hands are tied because, there's nothing to prevent putting up a curtain for privacy. So, it becomes tricky to say that it's not a room because the door is glass.
Right, but I was saying that to go through that door, you're basically practically standing in the main bedroom area.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, in that you are, I mean, I imagine if you were in this space, visually you would be very much in the main bedroom if you were standing in front of where the glass door is proposed. There isn't kind of an extension of a hallway that allows some types of semblance of privacy. I mean, it's right there. And I agree, if that was different, it would feel differently for me.
What's the intended purpose of the room?
It's an office.
And what I would say, Steve, is as we've looked at bedroom suites, functionally, it's how do they function together as a whole, particularly, I can, I'm looking at these measurements. This room is not a particularly big space. It's 9 by 10, 12, something like that. We have seen people's closets where they have 2 of these in their home that are bigger than this. I think that some homeowners would easily use that as closet space for one person, and then the other closet space would be for a different person. So for me, it's modular. It's not what the current owner intends to use it for. It's how it could be used and how it fits into other things we've seen before. But it's
The
really,
pro-
go ahead. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I was just gonna say, if there was no glass door, it would be kind of hands down, no contest, right? It's open, there's no door, it's done. It's just really, we haven't seen glass door before, which is the question mark. And as far as like, I understand that I'm gonna play devil's advocate here to what you were saying, Rebecca, is, oh, someone could put a curtain up. Well, that's absolutely true. We also know from having seen many homes that are out of compliance, people put up walls and doors without permits and bring their home out of compliance. That is the case. We have no control over that. And there's only so much we can do to control how a home is used and how much we should do to control how a home is used. But it's about meeting the regulation. Go ahead, Rebecca.
No, that's because we're supposed to be looking at what's going to happen, not for this homeowner, but for when they sell the house and what the potential. That's what's so hard about our job, is that we have to think, okay, well, how do we make the definition? Because it's a definition, it's not, like our opinions.
What if this area where the glass door is, if the glass door wasn't there and the opening was made larger? So you remove this wall. Is that something that would work?
Could I interject on behalf of the applicant here?
Sure.
So the presence of the door is fundamental to the design of this space for the way that Elizabeth and her husband have different schedules. And so Elizabeth needs to be able to have an office space where she can work while her husband is sleeping. And so it is a kind of a non-starter for the design of the space to lose the glass door. And just for what it's worth, I'll note that at the February meeting, the prior design was approved with the movement of the door. The glass door was accepted. The motion was made to make this an administrative approval with the movement of the door, which we did. And so we feel that we're kind of reopening this case with this discussion, which I understand may be you're right, but it feels like it shifts the goalposts on us in a way that we were not expecting, and it's come about at a time well after we submitted the revised drawings, and it's causing a burden on timeline for the client.
I think one of the things, though, we should probably explain the dynamic. The board cannot deliberate on things together unless we are in a public meeting. So it might seem like we've had it and had a chance to work this out, but the meeting is the time to do it. We are not allowed to deliberate without the public being able to be present. So sorry.
Thank you for no. I appreciate the clarification. It was just our understanding that no further deliberation was needed after the February hearing, that if we moved the doorway as we did on our revised drawing, that it would be approved by Mark. It was our takeaway from that hearing. And so we just are feeling surprised by this, by being back in front of the board and going over the issue again.
And that's because this is something we haven't seen before. So even though we talked about, getting the rooms joined from the sense of being separate from the rest of the rooms off of the hallway, but when we saw the plan, then we realized, oh, there's kind of another dynamic there, not having ever seen something like this. And again, we're trying to find a way to accommodate, but without leading to unintended consequences from, a particular kind of design and the slippery slope of what that might be. Just right. The easy answer would have been no. We're trying to find another. There's a different design that meets our criteria. So that's what we're deliberating now.
Okay.
Anyone else have any comments?
Diana, what are your, I don't think we've heard your thoughts, Diana.
With the movement at 104, I mean, I could picture going through where it says 104, and then you've got what the master bedroom bath, and that could very well on the other side, that would make a fantastic walk-in closet. And I understand the glass door you're saying just to keep out some of the noise. Oh. Hmm.
I mean, I
And I
think,
guess I'll just re-summarize. For me, it's that standing in between those, the bathroom, this new room with the glass door, but forgetting that it's a glass door, and then the other space. Those are closely intertwined from that point. There's not privacy in terms of someone's movement. You know, picture trying to put a teenage girl and a teenage boy in that space and assuming that they'll feel like they have privacy. I don't think they would.
you know, one of, I think, for me, I would be inclined to approve this with two conditions. And one is that that door remain a glass door and not at some point in the process get converted over to a standard opaque door, whatever we call it, not glass door. And then the other is just to ensure that in the future, going forward, if somebody is bringing forth a building application, I'm not implying that it's this particular homeowner, that someone doesn't decide to just conveniently close off where the glass door currently is and then open a new doorway into that space so that it is accessible through the hallway of the main house. So as long as it remains a glass door, and that there is clearly noted in the files for this property that that door is not to be relocated into the main hallway, then I think that I can look at this and view this as a suite consistent with what we have counted before.
I was thinking the way it might be easier to reword it is just to say that if the configuration of the primary suite was to be changed in the future, that would need to come before the board, kind of a little more all-encompassing and not having to name the door. I just throw that out there for consideration.
I don't know if that feels kind of ambiguous for me. I like things that are a little more explicit, but I'm not sure that that is necessarily descriptive enough for a board looking at this in 5 or 10 years to know what we were thinking. But I'd like to, so I think we need to be moving along shortly because this homeowner needs to go.
Yeah.
I think that we need, I mean, I can make a motion as I have discussed, but if it's just gonna get shut down, I want to make sure we have a motion that is going to have some type of a vote. So for in interest of time, does anybody else on the board have input or opinions before I make a motion?
Well,
We're
I'm
trying to-
wondering, Julie, with your comment, could we condense them so that the door to that area remain within the primary bedroom suite?
Yeah, I like that, and that remain a glass door. Okay, I like that. Let's.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay. We're cognizant that homeowner has indicated that they need to depart at 7:30 and we are at 7:30. So I move that we approve the building application with the addition of a primary bedroom suite, conditional that the door to the, I want to call it the dressing area.
Office.
Well, but I mean, just thinking about how we normally look at these spaces. The door to the space within the primary bedroom remain a glass door accessible from inside the bedroom. Did I get it right, Diana, what you said? No.
Yeah.
Get it right? Okay. Did that make sense, guys, as I was trying to sort it out?
Yeah, I was also thinking it could be the space across from the primary bathroom.
Yeah.
Remain or the doorway to the opening to the space across from the primary bathroom remain accessible only from within the primary suite, something to that effect.
Okay. I'm going to do a friendly amendment to my own motion. I move that we approve the building application for the creation of a primary bedroom suite, conditional that the door to the space across from the ensuite bathroom remain a glass door accessible in that space.
So moved.
If I can add a friendly amendment,
Yep.
it's a friendly amendment that's added to all, and I think the applicants are aware of this amendment, that when the building application gets approved, it will be conditional to the septic tank being replaced to a new location, and they can go up to rough electrical until that is, and once the septic tank's completed and a certificate's issued, then they can go past the rough electrical. That's a very common condition that we add to all building permits in situations of this nature where the septic has to be upgraded or changed. Thank you.
Okay. With the
Super technical there, Mark, but I just want to make sure, I know we discussed when we talked about the septic tank, it may just be moved, not replaced, which the board was okay with if the.
Yes, but the engineer noted to us, the designer, Eric Dickinson, said
Yep.
he is having that septic tank replaced, not just picked up and removed because of the integrity of it would be damaged. So you may want to speak to your designer because that was his wish to make sure that it's a new tank, not the existing tank. I know we spoke about that.
I
Eric-
don't think that's what we spoke about on the last call. I think we said it was, they were gonna decide when it was dug up, what the integrity was, but
Yeah, Eric, you may want to speak to Eric. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, he'll make the final call
Yep.
on his, but that can be discussed with Eric, but he's.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure it wasn't gonna be an issue if that did happen.
Yeah, if it does happen, it would have to be certified by Eric, so that can
Okay.
happen at that time. But he's
Okay.
at this point, he seems to be very uncomfortable with utilizing the existing tank.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, we can talk.
Yep, that's fine.
We have a second.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
Sorry, Elizabeth, we got you out a few minutes late.
That's okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate your
Thank you
time.
all. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Bye.
Rob.
Are you pulling up the agenda too?
I think, Daryl, I see that we have Mr. Bartlett with us and the applicant.
Okay.
I think that we should go ahead and take that next.
Yeah, all right.
Just trying to finish writing down the motion.
All right, so let's see which, probably the
Daryl.
septic plan, Mark?
Daryl, if I
Which
can-
thing would you?
I would
Go ahead.
recommend we go to other business, only because I don't believe anyone's here for Lot 1A Bogastow. I don't see the engineer, nor do I see the owner. If they are here, please let me know. But we do have, I don't know if they're still here, I saw the Douses here for the application that's being reviewed. Yes, Jonathan is
Okay.
here for the application under other business number 2, but I'll leave that up to the board how you want to handle that. But they are
Yes,
here.
We were here.
So So Julie, though, you saw Mark Bartlett?
Yes, I saw Mark Bartlett here.
Oh,
It's true, the Dowses
oh,
were
yeah,
here.
now I see. Yeah.
The Dowses were here first. We don't have this down.
Okay, so let's take the Dowses in.
Mark B, give us 1 second. We try to
Sure.
teach people if it's not scheduled.
Sorry, two
Um,
Marks in the
thank you
room.
for
I
your time.
apologize.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's very convenient for me.
Okay, so
And
I think probably, well, we could do the food establishment permit.
yeah, and there was a request for a waiver as well to the
Yes.
mop sink. I don't know if
And I
Tom,
think that's yes, I had a chance to speak with Tom on that.
okay,
But as long as we have the food establishment permit up, Tom is recommending approval conditional to compliance with all applicable regulations. So does anyone have any comments or questions regarding the food establishment permit?
I did have a follow-up question. I don't know if Tom got back to this. I know that, so looking at the water quality report, we saw that we had excess sodium, which is typical, and we require a posting. We also had the excess manganese. I know we'd seen this in previous years. And I think one of the questions we had at the time was the use of the water, if it was used for the production of cider. And I just hadn't heard an answer as to what it's for, or if this is just hand washing.
Jonathan's here if the board wants him to respond.
That
Yeah,
would be
that would be-
wonderful. I'm sorry,
Alex.
I don't have people in front of me.
I can answer that. The water is only used for cleaning of the cider mill operation. It's not used in any products that and in the cider or any of the products.
Jonathan, is it used for any drinking purposes from the staff?
No, it is not.
Okay, thank you. With that noted, I would say as long as it's not being used for domestic purposes, incorporated into the food processing or drinking water, I would say then at this point, they wouldn't need to filter it, but they would need to post a sodium posting for the sodium that's over 28 parts per million.
Can I make a comment?
Any other?
Yes,
Excuse
I
me?
would like to make a comment. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, go ahead, Rebecca.
Sorry. I just wanted to comment about manganese. Is there any way that somebody could accidentally drink that water, like when they're thirsty, who works there? Because manganese has been associated with neurotoxicity, which means that it's progressive and it's irreversible. So if you are exposed to the manganese in certain levels, I would have to see what the level is that's elevated. You can have progressive neurologic deterioration and present with Parkinson's disease, which would be tragic if you, your family members, or your people who work for you were to develop Parkinson's because of exposure to that water. So even though it's not required yet, because it's not manganese is not a regulated, it's not in the list of that fall under the law that require posting. You might want to have a post for that just to protect yourself and your workers.
Nobody drinks the water.
That's good. Okay, just making sure, because I don't know if there's any, that's why I was asking if there's any possibility that somebody might drink it if they're thirsty or give access to it. So that's all. I just say
Well,
for your benefit.
I would like to say that the level that's in our water is well underneath what they have set for standards. The standards. There is elements there, but it's well below treatment levels.
If I can add, Jonathan, it doesn't meet the secondary standards. We do have the lab report available if the board wants to look at it. It's one of the documents, but it's 0.05 parts per million. I believe it's at 0.15. I don't have the report right in front of me, but we do have it available in some of our documents. But again, if you were using it for regular domestic purposes, such as drinking, cooking, then that, as Rebecca noted, that would be a concern, and they do have filters for it. So again, it just not, you had already noted it's not being used for that purpose. So that's
Yeah, and it's not illegal because it's not under the law. But I just thought you should know because it could affect you.
yes.
Yes, it's one of those things that is emerging in the science. There are more studies all the time on this and the impacts.
So if you are using it for your own domestic purposes outside of the business, something you're welcome to consult with me on. They do have filters for manganese and iron. In this case, it's manganese.
They also feel that one of the bigger risk exposures is if you shower in water with manganese, that the mist and inhaling it has a much larger effect on you than drinking it. Okay, so do we have any other comments or questions on the food permit? So do we have a motion to approve the permit for, sorry, very small on my screen. Thank you. For Dow's Orchards renewal, and that would be conditional to a sodium posting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? Hearing none.
Chief Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Magna Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. Okay, then the other issue is the variance request regarding the mop sink. Or in this case, a waiver variance.
That is an available document as a letter from the applicants.
Mhm.
There it is right there. Yep.
Okay, so again, I spoke with the food inspector who noted that there are provisions for managing the water resulting from cleaning. And there is a method for cleaning of surfaces in place. I guess I had a few questions just to understand what the floor drain system is like, where the floor drains go, and whether it goes into the ground or into the septic or somewhere else.
We have a central floor drain in the cider mill that goes out into a septic system.
Okay.
Part of his request for a mop sink in the cider mill is, first of all, we don't believe that this is actually a food establishment inspection. This is a processing area. In the process of making cider, when I'm done, I use a power washer to clean my walls. You know, I clean everything. I use a power washer to clean the walls and the floors. I never, ever use a mop in that facility. So the requirement of a mop sink's a little bit foolish when I use hoses and power washers.
Mm-hmm. He's not necessarily inclined to require a mop sink because of your setup, just so you know. I just wanted to make sure that there's not some other issue, or whether this is a burden on your septic or anything else, or
No,
what have you. I
from
just
what
didn't know what else is going on.
Well, from Tom's explanation to me was that that was a change in the mass laws back in 2018. That requirement, and he's the one that indicated that we could request the variance for the sink. But other than that, the drain system in that facility hasn't changed in the last 30 years since I've been making this item.
So Mark, any issues with, I would assume there's a little bit of apple particles that are present. Do those get filtered out? I was just thinking as a way, sometimes that can interrupt your septic system performance.
Yeah.
And that would be, the reason I'm asking is could cause your system to fail earlier, is just what I'm concerned about.
And Jonathan was in the office a little while back, talking about future considerations for a newer septic system. Jonathan, on the present discharge of the floor drain, does that go into like a pit or does that go into a conventional septic system?
That goes into a pit.
That's what I thought. And it's been there for 30
okay.
years, but you are aware that we're getting to the point where if you ever decide on bathrooms and so forth within the commercial retail facility, it would entail looking for an area for a septic system. I know you're aware of that, and I think in the future, when that day comes, we'll be working with you to make sure a compliant septic system can be put into place.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments? And Mark, do you have any comments regarding just the layout and the wastewater?
I would suggest, as noted, and Jonathan's aware of this, that in the future, he's going to need to work with the building department as well as the Board of Health on future plumbing needs, and that be put on the agenda for a future need. It has been this way for 30 plus years, as just noted, but I think in the future, there would be the need for the hiring of an engineer to design a septic system that could handle possibly not just a mop sink, but bathrooms for the employees. Just so the board knows, bathroom for the employees falls under the building department. We require a bathroom for the employees, and that is, as Jonathan was in our office a while back, being addressed. And he just noted that he is committed to looking at that in the future. Thank you.
Okay. And one thing that I'm wondering, I don't know exactly what the composition is of the water. Is it water and little bits of apple? I don't know if there might be some more innovative way to manage that kind of wastewater, not necessarily with a septic system, whether it could be filtered and then land applied for irrigation or something like that. I don't know, but I think that what I'm guessing it might look like, it might not have to be part of, if you need to do a septic upgrade, maybe there's some way to separate that water out.
And they would do that, Daryl. That would be a special waste because of the apple product and so forth. But that's where the engineer would be involved with designing not just a septic system for sanitary waste, but any food waste that may be going through the septic system. They may put a separate settling tank outside of the septic tank for the sanitary waste. And that would all be in the review of future plumbing needs.
Mm-hmm. Right, just
It's a
because
good
it
point,
doesn't
Jake.
necessarily have the biological hazards that I don't think it would, that residential.
It's
septic
a little
system.
different from
So,
residential. That's correct.
yeah. All right. Okay. So anyone else have any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll propose a motion and we can have further discussion. A motion to grant the waiver to the requirement for a mop sink for the cider mill.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Keith Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca
still here?
Honeywell. Yeah, sorry, have
Okay.
technical problem. Aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. Okay, thank you. All right. Julie, do you want to take then, maybe we
Thank
can
you.
go back to Mark Bartlett?
Yes, oh, I'm sorry, wrong,
So Mark,
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Mark,
not you, not you.
Mark
Mark.
Oram,
wrong Mark.
Mark Oram will go take a break. And moving on to the business of, I want to make a this is just for our minutes, a note to the clerk. There was a small typo on the agenda. This is Washington Street, Sherborn Homes, Title V Plan Review. Washington Street Homes was a different project on another part of this parcel. That project has been rescinded, and so just so we have, these are similar titles and we need to get it right. Washington Street, Sherborn Homes. That was my important technical note. And so for that, I think our acting agent is a member of Stantec. Mark Bartlett is here and has provided a review of the first revision of this project. Mark, I'm sorry, I'm trying to see where you are, Mark, there. Mark, would you like to introduce this project and anything in particular you would like to bring to the attention of the board?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, thank you.
Yeah,
All right. Is the applicant present or is he not?
I see.
I am here, Mark. Yes,
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
thank you.
Yeah, I could share my screen on the plan, but oh, you have it. Do you have it? Or I could share my screen.
I think I have it. Is
Steve,
it,
could I actually ask if Mark share it? Because if we need to point to things, it might be easier for Mark to, if Mark, if that's comfortable for you, otherwise I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just have to make sure I know how to do it here. Hold on. Let's see. Hold on a second. I'm looking for something that says share.
it's at the bottom and you have to bring your cursor down to the bottom of the screen for it to appear.
Okay.
Should be a green button.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. Staring me right in the face. Okay. All right. So, let's share this. How's that?
just about here. Yep,
Okay.
we can see it now.
All right. Very good. We submitted a letter, I was probably about a week ago. I don't have the exact date in front of me here. But we had 2 meetings also with the applicant and their engineer. And we came to agreement on just about everything. One of the bigger issues was this trail easement, which you see crossing through the corner of the septic system right here, at least the original location of it. And you can follow my cursor, that's where I'm pointing. And there's a lot of back and forth with them about the need to protect the system, the risks of running the horseback riding across that. And I was pleased that the applicant decided just legally to move that easement over to the property line, get it away from the septic system and bring it down along the property line. I think that's very important. And they have agreed to do that. I don't know if it's finalized yet. I assume it'll have to be a condition if you get to the point of approving this. My comment in my letter, and I don't believe they had seen this comment, was that new location of the easement be located with concrete bounds. It's a more typical requirement of the planning board. The concrete bounds they're findable. You can put them with just a slight reveal above ground surface. They won't injure horses, as far as I know. And they're stable and they'll last. So for the protection of the rights of that easement, that's my suggestion on that. Pretty standard suggestion, by the way, but I think I don't know if the applicant has had a chance to respond to that, but that was in my response.
If you'd like me to, if Mark, if you'd like me to respond, I'm happy to. Otherwise, you can call me later. Either way.
No, I just, for the sake of the board, how do you feel about that? Is that probably?
Yeah, I'm fine putting in those. I'm a little nervous about.
Like to hear.
Yeah, what I said is that I'm happy to. I'm happy to put those concrete bounds in. I'd like to check and make sure that nobody kind of who has expertise in this area believes that there'll be a trip risk or a hazard to any pedestrians or horses. But assuming that you're correct, Mark, that it's not a hazard, then I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I suppose we could also make a couple of things that were higher so that they're more easily seen by pedestrians or horses.
Yeah, and the only reason I suggested, for the sake of the board's understanding, is the concrete is less likely to it'll survive over time. Wooden posts will eventually rot and get dislocated. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I'm willing to do that. Yes, no problem.
The only other thing I could think of just off the top of my head is signage. If the trail is going to be coming to an abrupt end, in effect, right here and changing, maybe you get some basic signs saying trail this way, and then when you get over here, trail this way, and so forth. I think it might be.
Yeah, although kind of historically, the way that's happened, Mark, on that trail is it kind of has a almost like a track, because enough people walk on it that it becomes obvious where the trail is.
Okay. Yeah.
So we would kind of maybe make that more obvious when we install, right? The system will have grass on it, but we won't put grass. We'll put whatever to kind of mark the trail.
Understood. But for the sake of protecting your system, we don't want people traipsing over it. So
yeah, absolutely. But I think actually the grade will deter that in some ways.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
So that was one issue. The other issue that we talked about with the applicant here was the presence of rock, and that's the only issue that still, I believe, according to the board and my discussion with the board, probably still needs to be addressed in a better way. But test hole 2402, which I'm circling here, had the presence of rock, and it wasn't deep. It was, I want to say, about 3 or 4 feet. And the applicant had pointed out that it's sloping downward, which is, I guess it's neither here nor there in my mind. It's there nevertheless. But they felt quite strongly that if they were to move the system further away from that they would be in a better position. I said, that's your call. Doesn't matter to me. You can move it if that helps. If you feel you'd be better positioned and you know the site, by all means. I didn't have a problem with that because the elevations are the same. But I suggested in my first review that there be testing to see if rock is present in other places where the field is. Now, the other test bits did not find rock, and that's encouraging. And there was one deep test bit, 2305. It was performed by a licensed soil evaluator, but not witnessed by the town. But nevertheless, it was encouraging to see no rock there in proximity to 2402. Nevertheless, we went back and forth, and at the time of our discussion, it was agreed that at a minimum during construction, they should dig down to elevation 203 substantial depth to see if there's rock anywhere else within the four corners and inside the field, wherever there's no test pit. And that this be a provision during construction, and they add a note to the plan, and I believe it was added to note 8. Regulatory note number 8, where it says the contractor shall excavate to the limit of excavation as shown, 5 foot over dig past the limits of the primary reserve trenches. And then any boulders or deleterious or unsuitable material, they should be removed to the satisfaction of the approving authority. And further down, it says during the bottom inspection, a minimum of 6 test pits shall be excavated to elevation 203 to verify the required depth of naturally occurring material. These test pits are to be witnessed by the design engineer and the appointed Sherborn approving authority. Test pits shall be in each corner of the system, and 2 shall be in the middle of the system. So they've agreed to that, but it's since come to my attention in my discussion with the board, Mr. Murchison, that they don't want to be setting a precedent in this regard. Then I let the board chime in, but it was that they would really want and need to have some test pits done before the system is approved, so that it's all buttoned up and in good condition at the time of their approval. And then if you go to the ZBA, there's no loose ends. I don't believe you've gone to the ZBA yet. So I'm going to stop there. And we'll see what we have to say.
Thank you for that, Mark. I want to second that. I holistically agree with the moving of the easement for the trail, for the protection of the system and the integrity to make sure that that slope is maintained and that there is not future breakout due to erosion from traffic. In addition to horses, we also have a healthy mountain biking community, which I believe uses this trail. And I think that a horse and a mountain bike are probably equally as destructive.
Yes.
And I mean that not in any type of negative way. They both have their impacts. So I truly appreciate, Bob, that you have relocated that trail. I think that is for the betterment of everyone. And in terms of, I also appreciate that the system was shifted away from test hole 2402, where we saw refusal. And you were correct, Mark, it was about 3.5 feet down is where it started. And so what I'm looking at here is, for most of the trenches on the system that's now been moved down to the east, we have test pits that do not have refusal. But what we have is this eastern edge around a trench, it looks like trench number 5, where we don't necessarily have any, or we do not have a test pit there. And if we had a test pit, say, just outside of the system to the east, the direction it's moved, where we could triangulate and estimate what we would expect to see, within a few feet, then, that would be okay. But there are no test pits in that direction. And so I think that is the challenge. When I think to what have we done in the past as a board, when we have seen, Title V, as you've called out in your notes, requires that the 4 feet beneath the system has to be free of impervious and unsuitable material. When we have had other Title V applications before us, particularly in the setting of 40B or even in the other settings, when there is any question about the entire system being over impervious material or unsuitable material, and there's a section that's been unclear, the board has asked for further testing done prior to approval of the system so that we can go forth with complete confidence that this is in fact a buildable system in this location. And so as I review this plan, that is the only part of this plan that is hanging me up, is ensuring that the entirety of this system has in fact impervious and suitable, has pervious and suitable underneath it. And I think that, you know, examples would be Brush Hill, and the other example would be, in fact, on this parcel itself for the Washington Street Homes project, where we did have issues there where upon further excavation, we did see refusal. This isn't a regular site with a lot of ledge. I think it would be to the advantage of the applicant to ensure that there's not going to be a surprise later down the road. So it would be my prerogative to go out. I would actually defer to Mr. Bartlett to kind of indicate exactly where. For me, it would be along Trench 5. One, at most two additional deep holes. I would consider a geoprobe. I think we'd have to talk about that. Just to ensure that there isn't a surprise there. And in fact, this meets the requirements of Title V.
I always prefer test bits, to be honest with you. I mean, geoprobes are, I mean, they're in some sense convenient, that you can do a lot of them fairly quickly. But, you know, you just, if you have a test pit, you have an excavator, you're just seeing everything so much more. It's just so much more enlightening. So, and I'm sure that the applicant has access to excavators, and I would just say that's, as you said, Julie, in this last trench where I'm moving the cursor, if you put one right about here, which I guess is the, I don't see the north arrow, so I lost my directions, but let's say it's the northeast. And then this one here, the south, west, you know, those two corners would be appropriate.
Functionally, one on each end of Trench 5.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think if that came back with, you know, affirmative testing that there is not ledge beneath any part of this leaching field, then I certainly would feel comfortable with approving this at this time. But I would want to see confirmation.
I would just add to that, if they were to find ledge, they'd have to really identify it well and profile it properly. In that event, do another test pit right about here, right in the middle. But that would be conditional on finding rock or ledge here. If they don't find it, great. I think that's enough. That plus the provision that they've agreed to for note 8, which I talked about. I would leave that in place regardless.
Okay, so I agree with a lot of what has been said. And what I just want to ask you, Mark, about is, I understand your interest in the test pits.
Right.
So one approach is to do the couple of test pits and get a little bit more information about that edge of the area proposed for the SAS. And then it would enter the normal process, if approvable after that, that there's always the caveat that when one goes out to actually install the system, there's always a chance of encountering something wholly unexpected.
Correct.
So one question I have for you is, the test pits offer an advantage, but the probes offer a different kind of, you know, maybe quicker testing of a broader area in the same amount of time. You don't get as much information, but you might get that refusal information for a lot more spots. I was just curious about your thoughts on that. Although I could see going either way at this point, because the test pits would cover an uncovered area at the moment.
The probes are useful. But like I've said, my preference has always been an open pit to investigate better. the probe is hit or miss. You may hit rock or a boulder. You may hit a boulder and get information that there's ledge and you're not sure, and then you have to do another one. Or if you miss entirely, you get this level of comfort that maybe isn't there if you had done a test bit. You know,
Okay.
I'm not sure that there's a cost savings, and that's not our issue, that's the applicant's. But if the applicant wanted to propose as an alternative probes, then I would say you'd have to do quite a few of them. You know, you'd have to go down the line here and do, I don't know, 4. I mean, you do them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you do
Yeah,
4
that's what I
here.
was thinking, that it would be
Yeah.
more points, but not as much detail.
It's more points, but in some sense, less information. Yeah. You know, they can, as you know, you probably don't, Daryl, they can pull up sleeves of, you know, profiles of the soil when they do it. Or they can just simply probe
done
for
that.
rock. Yeah, it can
Very
go
much.
both ways. But I guess you could just, well, I guess we could leave it to the applicant. You know, if they did the test bits, I'd be happy with that. If they were gonna do probes, I would say the specs on the probes would be different. You wouldn't do just 2, you'd do, you know, you'd spend a half a day there anyway, maybe more. Probing around. So, but
Okay.
you know, I understand where the board is coming from, and I fully support what you're saying.
Why don't we get input from the rest of the board on what they think about requiring additional deep hole testing? And then if it looks like there is a consensus or a majority, then we would like to come back to you, Bob. I see, oops, it says Bob is trying to come in. I hope he hadn't been out this whole time. It looks like he'd been
Still
here.
has one connection.
Okay, look, it might be he's transferring devices. I think that happens to people. So why don't we get a sense of the rest of the board, and then we can go to the applicant to see if he has a preference between deep holes and geoprobe. If that's what we determine.
Can I say something?
Please, we're
Yeah,
looking
thank you
for
so
other
much.
board members.
I really appreciate your very thorough explanation, and I think that because we're kind of, I mean, the guidance that we're supposed to be giving to the applicant has more to do with the long-term success of the project. And, you know, so I think the more information, the better, especially if it isn't really significant, different in the time or cost. So I think that I would go with your advice to recommend that, because we would get more useful information for our guidance, and also for him. I think that would, then there wouldn't be a smaller chance of sort of unintended consequence with more information.
Or I'm thinking, or getting an unpleasant surprise when you actually are going to build it.
Yeah.
Steve, we can't hear you. I see you're talking, but we can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry, I'm on mute. I was just gonna ask, so if ledge is found on that area between the northeast and the south, what happens then? Does it get shifted in some way, or what are the consequences of finding ledge?
Well, that's a great question. You know, if they were to find ledge, it would depend on how significant it is. Their engineer would have to make an assessment of, is it removable? Is it, you know, if they're just boulders, they can come out. And boulders are generally not an issue. If it's competent rock and rock that's continuous, then, you know, that's not acceptable if it's within the 4 foot of permeable material. Title V allows you to have it below the 4 feet of permeable material, but not within that zone. So that would mean either they have to remove it, hammer it out, or remove it somehow, Or if it's a boulder, they just pull it out. Of course, easier said than done sometimes, but it would have to come out. Or they'd have to redesign it, Stephen, and come up with a different plan. If they aren't happy with the rock being present. I mean, the way it's currently laid out, if you approved it tonight the way it is, and they encounter rock, they just have to remove it. It's that simple. They would have to get in there and remove it if they found rock during construction. And it would be much more expensive for them, but they would have to make it happen. And that's the provision that's in the plan. That's built into the plan right now.
And that's keeping it in the same location. You're not.
Yes, that's correct.
Shifting it anywhere.
Correct. Right. If they wanted to move the location, it would have to come back before the board.
Right.
And the other thing is that because we have 100% private wells in Sherborn, as you guys know, that the process of pulverizing rock, which is a method used in many places to remove ledge, would actually introduce the pulverized rock and its contents, whether that be, iron or manganese or so they're heavy metals in rock that unfortunately would end up endangering the overburden and then subsequently the shared aquifer. So I think that's relevant for us since we don't have a remote source of drinking water available to us in Sherborn.
Right. Well, the rock removal would have to be carefully done very carefully and to minimize any dust or unnecessary fragments, and it would have to be properly cleaned up and cleaned out of there as well. Some of that's just a matter of means and methods for the contractor. I'm not minimizing your concern. I think it probably is a concern, but the setbacks of wells from septic systems would also protect in some sense from any of the contaminants that you might be concerned about in rock. But also if the rock is removed in a way that's minimizes fragmentation, I think it's the term pulverizing doesn't sound proper to me.
I don't know the proper terms. I'm definitely not in construction.
Yeah, no, they would
probably specific technical descriptions, and there's also really good toys to break up rock that we didn't used to have, but I'm sure that you guys could educate me on that.
Right, they would want to do it in a way that would minimize dust and fragments. But honestly, having seen the test bits across the site, I don't think it's high probability. Not that we're not rolling the dice here. That's not our job. But I don't think it's something that we need to be overly concerned about unless when they do these test bits per our request that you find rock and it's shallow or it's within the zone of our concern. And then, they have to come back and talk I would think the condition would be if you have rock, you got to come back and tell us how you're going to remove it. Or if you're going to change your design completely. And make that part of the this advice, part of the advice to the applicant. Go out and do those test bits. If you don't find the rock, document it properly, and we'll be fine. If you do find rock, you're gonna have to come back before us and identify your means and methods for removing the rock.
Yes, I'd like to note that for whatever the test method is that's going to be pursued.
Well, that's the other issue.
Be observed by Board of Health agent.
Right. No question. I haven't heard we haven't heard yet from the applicant, so I'm not sure if he's with us or not. But like I said, I would prefer a couple of test bits along that last trench. If you would prefer to do probes then it would have to be a lot more than 2.
I think Bob, if you're here and would like to voice your opinion, please unmute. We're having trouble seeing. There you go. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm here and on camera. Can you all not see me?
Yep. Oh, yep.
I see you.
You were at the very end of my toggle.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, I guess I would start by saying that there was the Stantec response to number 4 was that our response and plan revision are acceptable. And so this is kind of new to me of this concept. I would also say that Title V gives the approving authority, the soil evaluator, their right to ask for more test pits. And the soil evaluator didn't ask for more test pits. And in fact, Daryl was on site that day and didn't ask for more test pits. And so I'm a little taken aback. I think what we proposed, and I thought I understood that Mark agreed that what we proposed was Title V compliant. Now, you know, we're building affordable housing here. I'm sorry? Was somebody speaking?
I don't think so.
We're building affordable housing here, and taking an excavator back over there costs about $5,000. And that's real money to a project like this. And I just wish that if the board wanted more testing, we had a machine out there that day and we could have done more testing. We were not asked to do more testing. And frankly, the reason is because we looked at what was going on and the way that rock was in that one test pit. And we also looked at the test pit right next to it, which was quite deep, and we didn't see an issue. And the soil evaluator didn't see an issue. And I think, you know, Mark, the issue of having compliance of 4 feet of pervious material below the system, 4 feet of naturally occurring pervious material, couldn't agree more. But what we proposed is that will absolutely happen. And we proposed a way that I think Mark was comfortable with to guarantee that will absolutely happen. The only question is the timing of it. And what I would say about what you said, Julie, about setting a precedent, we're operating under Title V here tonight, purely under Title V. And so I don't think you're setting any precedent under local regulations by any decision you make here tonight. And I guess I would just ask that why cause the delay? This application was put in a long time ago. And why cause the expense when what we've written and with your oversight when we build it guarantees a compliant system? You know, I'm just kind of a little bit taken aback here tonight because I read the response, and we had conversations, and you know, I know what happened. It's not lost on me what happened, right? Julie and Daryl weighed in advance with Mark and wanted to do it a different way. But what I heard is that what we proposed was compliant. And now I'm being told, you know, in a surprise, which is often what happens to me at these meetings, that you want more testing. And so I guess I would, you know, how is it different? How is the outcome different, whether we test now or we do the tests that we said we would do when we have an excavator out there? Frankly, to do the testing when we're building it is going to tell us a ton more because we're going to have excavated the whole system, right, Mark? I mean, am I,
Yeah, I mean, that the intent is to, at the time of construction, the way this is structured now is to do a thorough, number one, remove and replace, and to do a
That's right.
thorough assessment of the conditions that are required, that they're
Right.
present, and if not, they're gonna have to be dealt with.
Right, and we'll
Um,
have to
but-
come back
right.
to you all and figure it out. And we're more than willing to do that. I just, you know, having been on the site for that testing and understanding the rock, um, I'm not worried about it, but I am worried about delays because we've already had big delays on this project. And I'm worried about the expense of, going back over there yet again. And I don't think it's going to result in a safer project or a safer system. I think the result is exactly the same. It just costs more and it's more time consuming.
Rebecca, would you like to comment?
Oh,
I'd
Rebecca,
like to respond also. So when you're done,
you had your hand up. Go ahead and respond, Rebecca.
I have 3 comments. The first is, you know very well that Title V state requirements for a 40B project always default to the local regs in the absence of public water supply. Number one. Number two.
That is legally incorrect, Rebecca.
No, it is not. Their regulations default to ours, because there's not a public water supply and because it is, anyway, for affordable housing, it's even more important. That's my second point. And I think
Why
that
is it more important for affordable housing, Rebecca? Explain that.
because it's important it's going to be a shared water system. There's going to be risks to many people. And in affordable housing, you can't be sure that an individual is going to have the ability to sue a developer after their water is not safe. So we need to make sure the water is safe in affordable housing as well as individual homes. And so that's even more important to get.
So you
Excuse me,
think
I'm
the
speaking,
regulations
please.
should be different
let
for
me-
affordable housing?
No, I think the
Right?
regulations apply. And I believe that when you're building affordable housing, it's paramount that the drinking water be safe in the future, 5 years
That's
down the road.
paramount in all housing and in
Exactly,
all
which
of
is why-
life.
Right, but you're saying that somehow because it's a 40B project, it's less important to get information.
No.
Mr. Please allow me to speak. I'm saying that we need to pay attention to being thoughtful about this. I don't know, can't comment on what happened when you were at the site or when the original tests were done because I wasn't present and I missed a couple meetings. Maybe there was other discussion, I don't know. But I would say that it's extremely important that we get as much information as possible in advance to design a system that fits the site so that we can be sure that in the future, when you are no longer involved financially, there will be a big cost to the future residents and the neighbors if the water isn't safe. So that's why we need to get the information upfront, in my opinion. We're the Board of Health. We're not like talking about anything else except for what's the drinking water going to be like and how are we protecting the public safety.
Tonight we are here with a Title V application in front of this board. The Title V rules are what they are, whether it's affordable housing or whether it's luxury housing, which is the majority of what's built in Sherborn. Affordable housing, Rebecca, and luxury housing, they have the same
Right. But I'm saying that there's no reason
regulatory
to
framework.
rush your project.
Now you're interrupting me. Now you're
Yes,
interrupting
right. You're right. I apologize.
me, Rebecca. So what I'm saying is the regulatory framework under Title V for luxury housing and affordable housing is exactly the same. And I bristle at the suggestion that affordable housing projects should be treated differently in a regulatory framework, particularly in what we're discussing tonight, which is Title V. If I'm building market rate homes, the rules are the same as when I'm building affordable housing. And I think to say otherwise is dangerous, and I would ask you not to do it, please.
I would like to clarify, and my statement is that whether you are affordable or market value, the risk to the drinking water do not diminish because it's affordable housing. And there's no reason to rush or do a project without a very good amount as maximum information before, I mean, in a way, really, this is protecting you, because if you wait until the middle, you've excavated the whole thing and you discover that it's not, that there's ledge, that wastes a lot of your time and money. And so doing test pits in advance is going to protect you from unnecessary work and expense.
That's simply not true, but okay.
Julie, you're up next.
Thank you. I'm not even following the protocol of raising my hand. My apologies to the rest of the board. I should have written down your points, Bob, so I'm going to try to catch each of them. First and foremost, in terms of this, there is a statement from our reviewing agent that this is approvable. When I read his notes, it is clear that in his first pass and review of this, he intended that there would be additional test pits. I understand that you had a conversation with him where the two of you talked and thought this would be fine. What Mr. Bartlett was not aware of is that we do actually have a track record for Title V only projects. In fact, all of them have been yours that I can think of off the top of my head, where we had uncertainty under Title V about the conditions underneath the proposed SAS. And we asked you to go back and dig 1, 2, 3 more test holes. We're being consistent with how we have treated your projects over time and location. What we are asking of you is not 5 new test pits, 10 new test pits. We're asking for 2 test pits. And given that on this very site, when we had additional testing, there were unknown things that came up to us, particularly more ledge, large boulders, it makes sense to do that for this site. What was the other thing? In terms of the timing of this, I would like to make clear you are applying for this exclusively under Title V. I see that you received project eligibility for mass housing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I look forward to the comprehensive hearing process.
I do as well.
Assuming that you are applying for it, which I have no doubt you will. Assuming that that moves forward, there is nothing, if we handed you a completely unconditional permit today, you could do nothing with that until you have gone through your comprehensive hearing process.
I agree with that.
So absolutely, if the Board of Health is going to put our approved stamp on a Title V system, we are going to do it with complete confidence going into that hearing. And that is why I would like to see additional testing. And because I believe that is the intent of Title V. Daryl, go ahead, I'm done.
Well, you've actually covered just about everything, Julie, so I do agree with what Julie just said. No need to repeat it. I will also note that although you claim I was out in the field and didn't make any calls, I was not in the field for the purposes of that. That was to set up a special supplemental agent to be in the field making the observations that day. That is why I was there. I was not evaluating, nor did we have any any idea of what the possible location of an SAS would be, how large it would be. There was no information. It was just doing test pits. So then the normal process that we see is then people design based on the results of those test pits, and we need them to fall within the SAS and all the rest. So you've been through this a lot, you know that already. And again, as Julie mentioned, what we're looking for is not whether you could do it a different way. We're trying to be consistent on how we do it for all projects. And we usually require more information because not everyone has the kind of, not everyone would be prepared for surprises in the field. So we do like to have good information for them going into their project.
I'm cognizant of the time. I'm cognizant that Mr. Bartlett here is a guest. I guess everyone is a guest. Um, I would like to suggest if there are no further comments from the board, and if Bob, if we will give you one last stab if you want to say something else. My sense of the board is that that you will not get a conditional approval tonight. And in fact, we will require additional testing as described by Mr. Bartlett. There was a question of if you would prefer to do two deep hole test pits along trench 5 at each end as he described, or if you would rather do multiple geoprobes along that trench. And, ideally, if you're out there, to do a few more in the other trench areas. But we certainly, I did not hear a sense of the board that we strongly prefer one over the other. I think I respect Mr. Bartlett's professional opinion that the open pit is in fact more conclusive. And so I would certainly prefer that, but I would allow an option here. So I'd like to hear what you think.
I think, and I think Mark and I talked about this, it's my belief that on a site, this site, well, I don't agree there's a lot of ledge on this site. There is ledge on this site, but I don't agree there's a lot. What I do agree is that there are a lot of large boulders on this site. I mean, as you know, because we've been over it so many times, I've dug all over this site and I have found many, many large boulders. My concern about any type of probe is that with a probe, you can hit a rock that's, 5 feet or even 3 feet in diameter, and the probe's gonna tell you you have ledge when you don't, obviously. And so and by the way, a probe is not mentioned ever in Title V, or at least in this part of Title V relevant to what we're doing here tonight. So I appreciate the option, but I would be much more comfortable in what is described in Title V, which is the traditional test hole. So I would be much more comfortable with that. I guess kind of where we are, I mean, this is just another experience in the many. Do I have the understanding that if I go out there and I dig, and you can tell me, Mark or somebody else, where you want those, right? You can tell me the location, and I dig 2 test holes, and we have 4 feet of naturally occurring pervious material, then I'll come back in 2 weeks and you'll approve it. Is that my understanding of the board's current situation? Or am I going to come back and we're going to talk about something else? If I'm successful at showing you that we have the 4 feet of pervious below the 4 feet of naturally occurring pervious material.
I will answer for myself, and then I will let the rest of the board answer because I'm just one person here. When I review the other comments by Mr. Bartlett, there are no other deal breakers in his comments. There are certainly things that we would condition relative to the survey and the easement, making sure that's demarcated. But all of those would just be conditions. I don't see other deal breakers, and I'm going to borrow words from the ZBA, that would make this unapprovable. But that is completely dependent on finding nothing more than pervious material or a few boulders.
Well, I mean, yeah, basically, in order to be Title V compliant, I need to have, and correct me, Mark, if I'm saying it wrong, because you're the expert and I'm not. But I do have it and I read it, so it makes me a little informed. I believe I need to show you that I have, Mark, is it 4 feet of pervious material below the surface, below existing grade? Is that what the regulation is?
You should have 4 feet below the proposed bottom of system.
No,
Yes.
4 feet. Well, yeah, except that the naturally occurring in this case is only 2 feet, right? Below the
No.
bottom of the system. So I think you don't want that. You want 4 feet below existing grade. In other words, what I'm saying is worse than what you're saying. It's harder.
Well,
to
yes, below existing grade. I'm sorry, you're right. As you raise, you've mounted the system.
Exactly.
And so we want to see 4 feet of naturally below the A and B horizon. Okay, you've got existing grade, you've got an A and B horizon in the soil, and you want to see 4 feet. If you choose to include the B horizon, that's your choice, but then you would need to do a percolation test in it.
I think we already did that, actually.
That I'd have to go back and look at.
Yeah, one of them was in the B. Yeah.
But the safest thing is to get 4 feet of naturally occurring material. We typically call the C horizon present underneath the entire system.
Yeah, which I think you and I agreed was 204, was an elevation.
Well, 203 is the elevation I came up with.
Well, I thought we said we would dig to 203, but that was conservative, I thought is what we'd said.
Well,
yeah,
that's what I like to be.
Yeah, no, and I'm not. I'm just
Okay.
trying to say that. So let's go back to what I need to do. I need to go and dig and show pervious material down to 203. And if I do that in the 2 holes, I will come back and, subject to the rest of the board, of course, weighing in here. Julie's thought was that, we'll have the garbage grinder restriction. The boundary lines, by the way, have been placed by A&R, so that shouldn't be a condition, right? The boundary lines are hard. They're done. They've been approved by planning. They've it's been recorded. Those are lot lines at this point. They're not proposed lot lines. Many of my projects we deal with have proposed lot lines. This has actual A&R lot lines that have recorded. Okay, so that's not a condition. But the garbage grinder, what else? I'm trying to think of what else would.
Mark, you want me to would you like me to go through them both?
I just want to make sure there's nothing that I'm gonna be surprised
there was
about.
a note in comment 1 about benchmarks being set by the surveyor.
Yep, fair enough.
This is based on Mark's comments about demarcating the change in the easement of the path.
Yeah, so why don't we say, Julie, anything that's in our plan or in Mark's comments that I'm aware of tonight, there won't be anything beyond that. That's what I'm asking.
And in assuming that there aren't significant changes in the plan.
Of course.
Was before us, then for me, in my review, that is the case. But again, I would like to let the rest of the board.
Okay, no, that's perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yep.
Can I make a comment?
Sorry, Rebecca, just before you do that, the other thing I would like to do is be able to go out and get that done in the next 10 days. Can the board work? I have a existing order of conditions from DEP to test in that area that I've looked at with Joyce. And so I'd like to get this done in the next 10 days so that I can be back at your next meeting in 2 weeks, if that's acceptable to the board.
I would be fine with that. It's actually not my schedule that matters. It would be, I would have to confer with those who make the contracts, and then assuming that would be possible, I would have to then defer to Stantec and their ability to field an agent to go out and do that work. And so I can't answer that, but if I had a magic wand, sure, but it's really out of our control.
I mean, digging 2 holes down about 4 feet is not going to take us a lot of time, and it's an hour of somebody coming over looking at it, right? I mean, it's unless we have a problem, it's pretty straightforward.
Well, I can chime in here for a minute. I do know that I thought, Julie, we had the 16th was the date we were targeting for
Farm
another
Road.
site.
Yeah, Farm Road.
Yep.
And if time allowed, and it wasn't all absorbed in that, I don't know the proximity of Washington Street to the other site. And if
About
it's
2 miles, maybe.
it's close then. So in theory, our soil evaluator, Dave Glenn, could run over to this site and observe some test pits here.
Yeah. Yep.
I hate to put him in the spot. But I think it might be feasible.
Yeah. Yep. And Mark, would you mark on the plan the 2 spots you'd like to see, or somehow so I
Well,
can?
If you ran these test pits, like we talked about earlier, one right here.
Down on the bottom,
Yeah.
bottom east corner.
Correct.
Yep.
This quadrant here. Below
Okay.
test pit 2405.
Okay. Yep.
And part of the problem, Bob, is when the system shifted, you lost continuity with test pits being in the field.
Well, I've still got the required.
No,
three-
I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm just saying from the standpoint of the board. But anyway, one here and then
Yep.
another one down here.
So basically, the lower right and lower left corner of the field is what you'd like.
I think that gives assurance, yes. I
Okay.
think if we do that.
I can
Yeah.
get that done. And,
Yep.
and down 4 feet below the surface.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you can go deeper, all the better. I mean, if you're digging, but I do state that that provision that you agreed to, which is the regulatory note 8, should stand. I think you need to
Sure.
keep that in there.
Of
Yeah.
course. I mean, that's honestly, whether that's note is in there or not, it's my
Yeah.
responsibility to do that.
I totally
just-
get it. Yeah.
I'm saying something that's the law,
I understand.
And Mark, will you be able to also communicate, probably visually would make the most sense here, right?
With Dave,
Figure,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Just
I
so that
will.
we close that loop. If you're able to do that, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, I will do that. I
thank
think
you.
we can keep this all within our scope. If not, we have enough budget. I think it's not going to be a big issue. I don't want to see us go back and forth with Jeremy on this. I don't think it rises to that need. I think if we can keep it all within a day's work, everyone's going to be happier. And,
So the right and left lower corner, I can
Yeah.
find that.
And if you do encounter a boulder, determine where it begins and ends.
Well, we'll take it out, right?
or take it out. But yeah, don't leave us hanging.
No,
Okay?
no.
We don't. The board doesn't want to
No,
require this and then be left hanging again.
no,
So,
I can see what you want. I can go do that. Yep.
We were at the point where we were confirming that the rest of the board was in agreement with, or what the rest of the board felt about if there were other, I'm going to borrow deal breakers. Are there other deal breakers for this plan as it's currently proposed? Rest of the board members.
There aren't for me. I mean, I can see with the shifting of the system, couple more test holes on either end. As you just discussed, Bob, I don't have anything else that is of concern. You've already moved the trail so
Yep.
that if I go horseback riding with some friends, I'm not going to destroy anything. Beautiful.
By the way, somebody mentioned mountain bikes. Mountain bikes, to my knowledge, are not covered under the easement, and I've never seen one actually, which surprises me a little bit. But I've been over there a lot and never seen a mountain bike.
We'll pretend I didn't say that then.
It's not like I could stop them from mountain biking on the trail, but it is not a prescribed use.
I'll also note that this was the outstanding issue that came out of the initial review. And given the observations in the other test pits, I wouldn't really expect to see something radically different in terms of where groundwater is. But I suppose if you get in and there are models up 1 foot below the surface, that might raise some questions about whatever dynamic is going on.
I
But
don't
other than that-
anticipate, yeah, I don't anticipate
Right.
that short a
Don't
distance.
anticipate it, but you never know what kind of peculiar thing could come up. So I'd like to reserve the right that, we have to take new information as it comes.
So that's a good point. I mean, I think these are not just, these should be, if you're gonna do a test pit, you have a soil evaluator, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, have him there and do a full soil evaluation at each test pit. So then they go on the record.
Well, except we're not gonna go down 10 feet the way you would in a normal.
Well, no, you're gonna probe for rock, but you could still do a soil evaluation within the shelf that you build.
Yeah, in other words, if modeling is seen in the 4 feet that we go down,
Right.
sure, we'll note that, but we're not gonna go down, deeper looking for modeling or
No, you wouldn't need to if you find it
or
in the first.
groundwater. Right?
Yeah.
We've proven groundwater, obviously. Yeah.
But just, submit to the board logs of those test pits.
Yeah.
Right, and the agent will be there observing too.
Is he, is your guy, Mark, a soil evaluator?
Yes, he is.
Okay, good. Because one of the things that we're going to want to do, by the way, at Farm Road is to look at the soil classes when we do that digging. So I wanted to make sure he was a soil evaluator.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, good.
Yep.
I think it is Steve, you're the last person to weigh into Bob's question about if there are other deal breakers beyond this.
Yeah, I think the approach has been discussed, and what I like about this is we kind of started at a bit of a distance, but it looks like we've gotten together a little bit more about what we're looking to do. And it sounds reasonable to me, sounds agreeable to me as far as any other deal breakers. I think everyone else has got those covered. Yeah, I think sounds like we're good to move forward.
And Mark Bartlett, would it be fair to say that these excavations that are being done are for the purpose of identifying what refusal may or may not be all about, as opposed to a standard test pit that would be done for Title V compliance? It's a variation on that?
Well, we want both. We want, I think if you're going to be going to the effort of doing the soil evaluation, do a soil evaluation and submit a Title V approved log. But clearly the emphasis to you, Daryl, is that identify if rock is an issue here or not, and or if they're boulders or not, and having that clarified.
The reason I'm asking is there a depth requirement standard for a Title V test pit?
Yeah, it's 10 feet generally.
Okay.
And I'm trying to see the existing grades here. Looks like 211 is at one corner.
But what I was just said a couple of minutes ago was
but
that
you're right, Bob. It's in this instance, the 10 feet is more a standard, but if you get down to the elevation that I'm talking about, I think it's going to be fine for the system, for the design.
Right.
And so I don't think it has to be an absolutism. You must go down 10 feet. I don't see that as critical here, but I do think getting down to.
I agree that it may not be critical here. I don't want to claim that it's a Title V test pit then, but it's a confirmatory test pit of a different nature. Does
Good
that
point, Daryl.
make sense?
That's so sorry, Daryl. I didn't quite hear what you said, and therefore the point was lost on me. If you could just clarify it.
The objective of these excavations is not to be a standard Title V test pit. It is to confirm the refusal issue.
That's my understanding of our conversation, yes.
And yes, and so I just don't want to claim that it meets Title V. I'd like to be clear that it is serving a different kind of purpose for this.
But we agree that my other
Validation.
pits do meet the Title V requirements for getting this approved, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying they don't. But,
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yep.
I mean, except the unobserved one that to me wouldn't qualify.
Yeah, right. Although in some ways I was arguing the unobserved one was also kind of like a non-Title V, right? In other words, it gave us a lot of good information. It's not
No, it gave you good
formally.
information, but we need to go by
Sure.
what was observed.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that
Yep, good.
Well, on the same page there, Bob?
Yeah, so Mark, as soon as I get some contact information, I'll kind of coordinate with your guy for next Friday. I might even go out and dig those on Thursday afternoon. I mean, we'll have to make sure they're safe overnight, obviously, but
Right.
you know, get that so that he can go over there almost like first thing and take a look, and we'll know whether we have a problem or not, obviously.
Yeah.
So anyway.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay. But if somebody can send me the contact information for him or her, that would be
Yeah,
great.
I'll make some calls tomorrow to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Should that go through you, Daryl or Julie? Just
In terms of the process, to you and Brandon, whatever your process is for communicating that information, if you can send it to us and we can pass it on, we'd be happy to do that.
let's do that. Let's just do that as your agent. I'll send you, if you don't have it already, you should have it. We'll get you Dave Glenn's contact information.
Yeah, I do not have his contact. But
Okay. All right.
Bob,
We'll
as
get
soon
that
as
to
I
you.
get it, I'll pass it to you.
Is he nearby, Mark? The only reason I ask is when I used to work with Mark Orem, we would call him in the morning and say, "Hey, we think we're going to be ready at 10:30, or we're delayed. Please don't come till whatever."
Well,
it's
he's-
scheduling only. It's nothing.
I understand. He's
scheduling.
planning on going to your farm road site, and I believe he lives in Hopedale.
Yeah. Oh,
So
perfect. Okay.
he's
Well, in
not
some ways,
that
I
far.
think if the plan in my head right now works out, I might like to see him over at Washington to start the day while we were getting the holes dug, because it takes us time to get holes dug. So.
And that was something we pointed out through Julie to, let's not waste time. Let's try to have some holes.
Yeah, I mean, I would
advanced.
say almost something like noon. Give us the morning to get the work done.
Yeah.
And get that, get
Well,
things.
I'll let you coordinate with him.
Yeah. Okay.
Directly.
Perfect.
And I'll get his contact information to, I guess, to Julie, and then you can share that with Bob. And if there are any questions, just call Brandon and myself. We'll get it straightened out.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Daryl, I think perhaps we need to have a motion of the board to codify this, or do we feel that this conversation is record? This is a procedural question. I'm asking my more experienced board members what they recommend here. Rebecca.
I'm sorry I lost you guys for a couple minutes. The comment that I want to make now is kind of similar to what I wanted to say earlier when I disappeared. And that is that Mr. Murchison asked Julie if this was passable. And I wanted to just say that we wouldn't ask for more information if we didn't think it'd be relevant, and that we do want to look at the information. So I just don't want you to later on, if let's say we find something that is of concern, I just want to make sure you don't turn around to the board and say, you said that it was approvable, blah, blah. I think that we hope we can get this through, and it'd be great if everything works well. And I just wanted to say that, the board has your interest in mind, but we also want to make sure we get the information and we use it to make the best decision. And so there is a value to it, or we wouldn't be asking you for it. So I think it's hard to make a commitment today. That's the only thing I wanted to say. But I agree with the approach that we've sort of come to, as long as you understand that we have to look at that information objectively and make sure that we feel comfortable at that point moving forward.
and then, so in the question of what should we do about this, I think I would like to make a motion that we authorize the agent Mark Bartlett to, and it's already partially been done here, but to, and or his colleague, to approve the locations of the test pit. And again, that's pretty much taken place, but in case there's any proposals that come up in between, I think we want to give him the authority to weigh in on that. Or Stantec, we could do it by defining Stantec.
Well, I feel like we just determined the locations, didn't we?
We did do that, but say you go out with the excavator and there's some issue of access or safety of operating the equipment, and someone wants an adjustment, I'd like to give Stantec representatives the opportunity to say, sure, move it over 5 feet this way. And
Okay,
that,
sure. I mean, I
and-
think
and
Daryl,
adjust accordingly.
I know that area pretty well. The only thing that would cause us to not kind of be right on the mark, we might have to move 3 feet because of a tree being in the way that we don't want to knock down, you know, at that moment.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Once you're there, and it's different looking at a diagram
Of
than
course,
being
I
out there
agree.
in the field.
Yeah.
So I
But
don't
there's-
want to preclude that, and I want to make it explicit.
No, it's not like there are any cliffs there are no cliffs we're going to drive over. It's like a tree in the way, so we move to the side kind of situation. Yeah.
Mhm. I understand the issue of field.
I'll be talking to Dave
that-
Glenn as well about the locations, and he'll be
Yep.
fully informed before he goes out there.
Yep, great.
What we've
Right, and you
talked
could
about tonight.
mutually come up with it. You reference some places, but
Right.
they, you know, and this is up to you to decide, Mark, and you and your colleagues. But for example, let's say Bob circled the 2 outermost corners. That may or may not be a great spot, but that may not be what you meant when talking about. So I just want to give you the flexibility to exercise your technical judgment on that.
Thank you. I understand.
All right,
Is
so
there a
Would that be
motion there?
okay with the rest of the board as a
I
concept?
completely agree with that. I think practical judgment makes sense in the situation. Daryl, my question was about, and thank you, Steve, was I feel like for formalities purposes, there should be a motion and a vote of the board on this decision. We've had extensive discussion. I think we can just close it out and be able to move on.
Well, that was my way of closing it out, was really to authorize Stantec to determine where the 2 test pits need to be and to observe them, essentially.
Are
As
you
a way of shortening, like, the whole discussion?
perfect? Do you feel that we do not need to have a vote? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think we could have a vote on that.
Okay.
I just wanted to see if that covers what you were thinking, or if you had additional ideas that you were thinking
Well,
we needed to
If we keep talking, my ideas are going to get worse.
be formal about.
Okay, just because I'm getting tired.
Yeah, I'm beyond.
As everyone in this room
Beyond.
is. So I move that the board require 2 additional test pits in the area, the ends of trench number 5, with the understanding that our acting agent through Stantec will identify and approve the locations if they need to change in the field and still be consistent with the intent of the board in this discussion. Did that cover everything?
So,
Yeah,
so moved.
Perfect, okay.
second.
Anyone
Any
discussion?
further discussion?
Okay, Hearing none.
Hearing none.
Keith Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
May I ask a quick question before I go on the agenda?
Yeah.
Have you already discussed the ADU issue on your agenda? Because I was going to stay on if you haven't, but if you have, I'll pop off.
No, I think we're actually probably about to get to that, and it is a review of Title V guidance that we have recently received.
Great, thank you. I'll be here listening. Thanks.
Thank you,
and-
Mr. Bartlett, for your time tonight.
Okay.
Yes,
You-
thanks, Mark.
It's okay to sign off, I assume?
Yes, all set. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We'll be in touch
Perfect.
with you about David Glenn. So,
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
you too. Thank you.
All right. Oh, good. Mark, you are back with us. Hang on, I have lost my agenda.
Okay, so as I
Sure.
look at the hour and the complexity of the ADU issue, I was going to ask Mark if he wanted to give like some kind of, or anybody else, a brief overview of a few ADU issues, but I think this is something that is not something that we're going to be able to cover entirely.
Yeah, I would be glad to help with that, Daryl. I think if you look at the FA frequently asked questions, I always try not to use acronyms. And actually, this morning during our mini conference, I think Julie was there. We're trying to stay away from acronyms. So the frequently asked questions on accessory dwelling units, the last three really are three areas you may want to look at. The others are more about nitrogen loading and other general questions. And then there's also the guidelines too, which are available. And maybe we could dive deep into it at the next meeting. But I would say if you want to look at the frequently asked questions for accessory dwelling units, I would suggest looking at 14 through 17.
Steve, are you available to pull those up?
Yeah.
And I
Thank you.
believe we only have the frequently asked questions on it. Yeah, I don't believe we have the guidelines. We just have the most recent document, which is the frequently asked questions. And I'm looking at it just because I have it.
Item 14?
Can
is a
folks
good
see
starting
that?
point?
And I would say
Yep.
the ones that really apply, I'm sorry, I hit the numbers wrong, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And 17, if you don't mind me continuing, Daryl,
No, please go right
and
ahead.
board members, these items, you'll see they reference items that we should seek legal counsel, local legal counsel, especially when it comes to local regulations and how it affects where we go with this. And you'll see under 17 question, under number 17, the question is about local regulations that are more restrictive, and under under the answer part, it says local approving authorities should consult with their legal counsel. I think that is key here, because in speaking, and not just myself, but many health agents were asking questions like this at previous reviews by DEP, and their generic answer is seek your legal counsel on that. And also, I spoke to Claire Golden from DEP just recently on another subject that we need to look at sometime, but it's not on the agenda, and I'm getting the same answer. They really want us to seek legal counsel, local legal counsel on subject matter that deals with local regulations. And Claire did say that we also may want to go to the I forget the full name of the acronym, but the Housing and Communities group that created these regulations for accessory dwelling units. So where our legal counsel could seek their review as well. But DEP is being very, I don't want to say the word quiet, but they're referring us to our own legal counsel in the Housing
Okay.
Authority and Communities. And when you look at the top of the frequently asked questions, it's even there where they recommend that we, and when it comes to local bylaws or regulations, should be directed to the municipalities legal counsel. So it's in a few places within the documents they're sharing with us. And that's kind of where I was leading with the board on that. But you're welcome to look through it. I just want to let you know that there's, quite a few questions and answers here related to many matters within Title V.
Actually, I see 19 is applying a long-standing
Yes.
policy that they've had, so that is consistent with following the Title V.
That is correct. And
regulations as well.
Claire Golden, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Daryl. I was just going to say, Claire Golden was very, very clear on this, that indeed you cannot get additional flow from the design of a garbage grinder. So they are clear on that. They're very specific on that. And actually, Sherborn may have been one of the first towns for that type of review, because we had that same question about 3 or 4 years ago, and we got the same answer, that you cannot use garbage grinder flow for consideration of additional flow if you said you took the garbage grinder out.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Daryl. I didn't mean to interject.
Things are. No, that was helpful.
Okay.
Can we, and I agree with you there, we are gonna have to get our brains around this, but also I think we're gonna need to have a more clear presentation, potentially to the public, where I know there is a lot of questions, or at least something that we can compile for resources on our website. It might include these FAQs and the guidelines, which are not the most user-friendly sources of information for the public, but at least to make sure that that's out there. Unless, is that available already through the DEP site, or we could link directly to it? Does anyone know?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is. These are on the DEP website,
Okay, perfect.
as well as the guidelines.
Perfect. I haven't gone there to get them. They've been sent to me conveniently. And I think the one of the
Also, if I could just mention, at the town meeting, the planning board had a nice little table that indicated some issues around ADUs and how they fit into the structure that we have already.
Yeah. And they were particularly making the distinction between protected use and special permit, which I think for our purpose, I don't think that there's a difference for us. It is design flow based on room count. Right. And which goes to number 2, which I think is a good question, is would you basically take the aggregate of number of rooms between the principal dwelling and ADU, or do they stand separate? And they are separate, distinct dwellings. So if you have a 9-room home, that is a 4-bedroom septic requirement. And if you have if you have I guess you could have as small as a 1-room ADU, which would be kind of hard, but I'm trying to think of a better example. They are 2 distinct. Because I think we will see a range of room counts for ADUs, right? Anywhere from 1 to 8. But yeah, you add them up and divide them separately is my take home, which was
It's kind of how we treated. I'm sorry, Julie, I'm interjecting.
No, you're right. You were going to
but
mention a previous project, but please do.
Yeah, campuses, the type of projects that were like campuses with 3 homes on them, we treated it almost the same way. We looked at every individual home. Bullard Street comes to mind.
And there was another property on South Main where there was the potential conversion of a horse barn.
Yes.
Yeah. Do other members of the board have particular comments that they want to call out on this? I would.
Comments, but does an ADU count as a affordable home in the affordable home count?
That
Not
is,
necessarily.
yeah, no, that is, I would like to ask that question too.
Rentals do, right?
The answer is no.
Oh.
Affordable homes have to be deed restricted to be affordable, to count in the SHI, which I think is probably what you're asking, Stephen. In other words, they are affordable by the virtue of the fact they're small, but they have to be held back. In order to count in the SHI, they have to be held back for people at 80% of the AMI, right? And
Okay.
so,
But I thought rentals were included in that count.
no, I think what you're thinking of, Steve, is that, so if I were to come and do in the example we were just dealing with, right? It's a 4-home project. It's for sale. One of the units is affordable, and the town gets a count of 1 unit. When I went to mass housing, I said the 4 homes are going to be rentals, then even though I'm only making one affordable, the town gets to count all 4 of them as affordable. So it's kind of an extra benefit to the town to count market rate homes as affordable in a 40B project.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it
Okay.
does.
Yeah. But ADUs are obviously lower price primarily because they're smaller, which is a good
Right.
thing. But the
In
town
general, they
doesn't.
should be affordable.
Yeah, but the town doesn't get to count them
Right.
particularly. So,
Got it. Thank you.
Any other board members on the subject of ADU?
I'd love to explore it more deeply, but just not now.
Yeah, I dream of having handy slideshows like the planning board can come up with. I know the amount of time they put into those though.
I would just ask the board to consider requesting legal counsel on the use of local regulations.
Yeah, I think we discussed that before. Problem is, I can't remember who advised us, but we were advised that it defaults to the local regs. And my biggest concern, I mentioned this a few months ago when we were discussing it in more detail, is how we protect the residents of the ADU. If it's not a relative, then they don't own the drinking water supply, but they are potentially at risk from decisions made by the owner for the drinking water supply regarding drinking water quality. So is there a way for us to incorporate a way into the regulations that would give some protection for the residents in the event of some sort of contamination or some sort of problem with the drinking water? And I don't know how we can do that, but I think it might be something worth considering in the future.
I think it will become, as you mentioned, without it being family members, which used to be the rule,
right,
quite some time ago. And if both units on a property are not owner occupied, then that kind of changes the dynamic too. And so I've had concerns about, right, how are we going to manage that?
Right.
And the other thing about talking to legal counsel is, well, we hear otherwise, we're really obligated to apply and enforce our current regulations.
Sorry, I have my hand raised.
I was thinking with this guidance, there's just so many innuendos to it in different situations that I think we're going to be seeing, or that we could potentially see and come before us.
there might be some, it might be addressed in the DEP's model guidelines for private water supplies, but I'm not sure if they have a specific section, but we can maybe look into that for ADUs.
I'd suggest to the board that we put this on another agenda, seek legal counsel on local regulations and include the guidelines that was the first document from DEP that came out. But that would be my suggestion to the board.
Yes, I wouldn't mind just taking care of all these permits that are coming up for this weekend's activities at the library. Bring that.
Just so I hear that we are moving on. I pick that up, Daryl. That sounds fine. I don't think anyone's going to argue with you right now. We did not finish Bogastow Brook Road, which I believe is now 36 Bogastow Brook Road. So we had started that. I wanted, just for housekeeping, I want to make sure we pick that back up. There was not a motion. So Mark, you are recommending approval of the renewal of the septic plan. You noted a small change of the house location. Is that correct?
The house location, well location, and septic tank based on the fact the house changed. They changed the location of the house, but I am recommending approval to the board on those changes, and it's a renewal with a new name to it, and I'm recommending approval for Lot 1A, 36 Bogastow Brook Road.
Does anyone need to see that, or are you okay with the description from Mark? And recollection of the plan?
It was minor. It was my recollection, and I'm okay personally.
Okay, so then let's, do we have a motion to approve the renewal of the septic plan for Lot 1A on Bogastow Brook Road?
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Discussion. Oh, I'm sorry, Daryl. We received notice that it is no longer, it has officially been assigned a street number of 36. In our motion, should we identify instead of Lot 1A, it's 36. So friendly amendment to call this same motion, just 36.
Lot 1A, and it's what again?
36 Bogastow Brook.
36. Okay. So would we like to have a motion for that amended? Suggested motion?
I think it was just a friendly amendment to the motion. We have a moved and seconded. And if there's no further discussion, I think that's a small change. We're just updating then I think we can go ahead and have a vote.
Okay.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye. Okay, food establishment permits. Moment, I'm going to bring up a copy. All right.
Can you see
I
him on my
had
screen?
mentioned, excuse me?
Can you see him on my screen?
Yes, I can, but I'm fine.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
So do we have maybe we can, let's see, mobile. I think maybe we can do this as a group. There are permits before us for the Little League parade that took place on May 3rd. And this is to ratify the food inspector's approval of those permits. So they would be for we're looking for then a motion to ratify the mobile vendor permits of May 3rd for Mr. Gourmet, Grandy's Ice Cream, and, oh, just that. Okay, those two.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye. And then for the, do we have a motion to approve the food vendors for the Library Arts and Crafts Fair on May 10th for Dolce de Leche and Holly's Heavenly Creations?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. And then for the Silverwood Farm event of June 1st, do we have a motion to approve the food permits for Bird's Nest Italian Street Food and Big Little Pies?
So moved.
So moved. Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. And, oh, I should have been saying ratify for all of those, not approve. And for a mobile seasonal vendor permit for Sam's, do we have a motion to approve the mobile seasonal vendor permit for Sam's Ice Cream? To ratify, sorry, the permit for Sam's Ice Cream.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing
I-
none?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a quick question. Daryl, it's a ratification because it's been approved by our food inspector and we are just ratifying it as the board, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. No further comment.
Okay.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. And
Minutes.
I have not had a chance to look at the most recent meeting minutes that were received, unfortunately. Has anyone else?
I have.
Or
I
shall we
have.
put this on the next? Okay.
We just need a majority to vote them, guys.
Yep.
So we got one more taker. So we have the 2 minutes from December 4th and then December 18th. For me, for December 4th, again, as we are working through our backlog, I am really trying to make sure that I am only making edits if I think it's kind of an important. So for the 4th, I didn't think that there was anything there that was particularly relevant. There was small inconsistencies with heated versus non-heated drip wells, but in the motion was accurate for the motion of the board, and to me that was the most relevant part. And for the meeting minutes of the 18th of December, I had 2 tiny changes. One was it was accidentally put in as 4-bedroom septic system when it should
Yes.
4-bedroom house. You got that?
Line 154. Yes.
Yeah. And then there was another. Oh, I almost had them both off the top of my head. It was another it was a very small one word to just accurately capture it. That was it. And again, I think it's the kind of thing you could easily have read past it as a board member and just have not have noticed it, but that's it. So I am ready to vote approval on both of these. And if we have a majority to do that, I would love to continue to get some of these approved and posted.
So, but Julie, in that situation where it was just 2 words, line 154 that the 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom little mix up there.
Yeah.
Do we let that go or?
No, we would just, I think we would have that revised. I think
Okay.
there are, well,
Okay.
process-wise, there are 2 ways to do this. The way we have been using is any revisions go back to the minutes clerk,
Yes.
and then they update that, and we can still move approval, noting the edits, you know, with the edits, the suggested edits. And that would be fine. I think this,
Okay, but we need
this would
3 of
require a
us.
whole different motion and a whole different thing for us to get to. But we have recently learned that we could in fact authorize one member of the board to receive edits of minutes and incorporate those in versus having to send it back to a minutes clerk. I think we should consider doing that in the future, but that's a whole nother motion, and it's not, I don't think it's properly listed on the agenda.
Okay.
So do we have a motion to approve?
Can I just say, I had two edits that one of them might be substantive, and so I need to go back to the recording because it had to do with my vote. I can't remember because it's a long time ago for sure.
Okay. And that's in which minutes are we referring to, Rebecca?
I believe it's December 18th. don't even have my notes in front of me because my clinic went really late today. So I need to find that piece, where my notes are to confirm which date it is. But there was one where I thought I had abstained. I want to confirm that I had. But the minutes say that I voted yes, favorably, and I thought I had abstained.
Okay.
Okay.
That is substantive.
So I wanted to know if I could I can send it to the minutes clerk if it's true, if you give me a deadline.
That's a great question. It would be great if we knew which set of minutes we were talking about so we could
Yeah, I had it on a piece of paper to bring to the meeting and it's like not even here. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. And I think it's the role of each
December 4th.
to make sure they're vote. It is the 4th.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
So the deadline would be by Monday.
Okay.
So that
thanks.
The person has the time to correct and get it
Would
back
we-
on the next agenda, and then maybe we can vote the December 18th.
Do we can vote the 18th. Do we feel that I so want to check off 2 things. I'm trying to find
I know, I'm sorry.
And so I'm wiggling in my brain how we could potentially approve this conditional, you know. Okay.
Rebecca confirming what her vote was, listening to the recording.
What do other people think? I mean, we want to make sure certainly how a member has voted being accurately captured is definitely a substantive issue.
Yeah.
And so if we vote on a set of minutes and it is not accurate and the member wants that changed after a vote, I think that's a problem. And so if we have not added that in as a condition, I guess let's just play this safe. Please, Rebecca, if you can get that information to Jean, and then she will get that to the minutes clerk, to the drafting minutes clerk, to be able to update that. And then we'll bring this back at the next meeting, but it sounds like we can move forward with the 18th.
Thank you.
Sure.
I thought the minutes clerk did a good job.
I think she did a very good job. So I move that we vote approval of the December 18th, 2024 meeting minutes as drafted, with the minor edits requested.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none.
Pete Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye.
We will move back to that. On the topic of minutes, I want to update the board that we have really good news in our effort to quickly make up a backlog of minutes. We have had the very good fortune of retaining a additional minutes clerk for a limited scope of work, basically to help us with the backlog and this month's minutes. And so I'm very excited that we've been able to get extra help in doing so. And so just to let the board know that we have 2 minutes clerk at this time.
Great. Can I
That
just
is great
say
news.
that it's the minutes clerk. Where does the minutes clerk work?
They work remotely.
Oh, okay, interesting. So there are minutes. This person does minutes for other
Other towns, yeah.
Yep.
towns and things like that.
They're technically
Yeah.
consultants. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I guess no, they're part-time. Oh gosh, they're part-time. They're part-time employees, but they're able to do this remote. Yeah.
Interesting. I
reached
out. That's interesting. Thanks.
I had reached out to other towns, find out if they had minutes clerks they could recommend. So that's how we got this person.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that covers that.
The
Next.
only thing left is agenda items.
I don't believe we have any variance hearings scheduled for next week is what June let us know. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me to see what's already on there.
I'm not aware of any. I know I have 2 septic plans that came in recently that will be reviewed, but I don't think either one have waivers. And if they do, it could be, I think we have one scheduled for June actually. So, but I don't believe for the next meeting that we have any waivers being requested, to my knowledge.
Yeah, okay.
And
That's
will
helpful.
0 Washington Street be on that agenda as well?
Oh, yes,
Yes.
yes, thank you. I don't think that's the accurate title. I think that's the current, because it doesn't have an assigned number, but Washington Street, Sherborn Home.
Sherborn Homes, right.
I want to make sure we get that right. We would anticipate that if the testing goes as scheduled on the 16th of next week, and we receive the soil logs as prescribed by our agent, and then he has had time to review those and is able to then send us an updated memo or letter or whatever, then I think yes. So it's a tight turnaround, honestly, given that the meeting will be posted on the 19th and the testing will be happening on the 16th. But I think we could at least in the event something happens and they can't actually make it, we can at least put it on as tentative, as a placeholder in case something changes. That was kind of long worded, sorry guys.
I think ADUs are a possible addition, but maybe some narrowing, so we can all zoom in on some aspect of it or some subset of it. So that might be to work on, perhaps with Mark, identify ways to chop it up. It's not too overwhelming each time we try and go through it.
It will be post-election. What I would suggest that we potentially have a restructuring of the board. If it works out in timeline, it doesn't have to happen immediately after. Anyone else?
I don't I mean, I think there are things on the horizon, but it's hard to know. Will they advance a little bit more? Okay.
I'll let you do it, Daryl.
Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? There are none.
Keith Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye. Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone.
Okay, good
Thanks,
night.
everyone. Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.